Hey there guys, we're taking a look at Assassin's Creed Unity running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5500U. Now this is paired with the 16 gigabytes of RAM running in dual channel 3200 megahertz. The game is running at 1080p with the lowest graphics settings, and the performance that we're getting like this is not great. We are barely managing to get anywhere near 25 FPS right now. Right now we're not even at that average right now. Our 1% lows are under 20 and our frame times are looking pretty brutal. Overall, the entire gaming experience of this at 1080p is just going to be completely out of the question. I kind of just tried it out just to see if it would actually run like this. It really doesn't. It just really doesn't. So I would completely just try to avoid playing this game at 1080p. Even just standing here doing nothing, we're getting such terrible performance, and really it was just not going to be an enjoyable experience at all. I mean, it's just overall a rough experience. You're not really going to be able to play this at 1080p. I would recommend dropping the resolution down to 720p. 900p is not going to give you enough of an uplift to justify it, because even 720p does not really give you the best level of performance, and let me show you that right now. You can see here that the performance that we're getting is of course noticeably better compared to what we were at 1080p, and this is actually at a level of performance that I think a lot of people can safely say that they can at least get away with trying to play. It's not going to be a great experience though, because of course we are getting 1% lows that are just slightly above 30 FPS, and we are getting an average that is in the mid 40s, so not exactly the smoothest experience, and you will see that the frame times also kind of move a little bit up and down like they're waves. So again, not going to be the best experience, but you can actually get away with playing it on here if you're really that desperate to play. You know, as a kid, I would play games at like 15 FPS sometimes. So it was not exactly going to be the greatest experience, but I still had a lot of fun. So if you're getting this level of performance, like if I was a kid and the games that I wanted to play were running like this, I would have been so happy, you know, better than the 15 FPS that I was getting before. So for sure, this is an improvement, but it's just one of those things where if you're used to getting better FPS in this, you're not going to be able to really stomach through this. Personally, I didn't really have too many issues with it. I don't know if I'd continue to play it like this, mostly because Unity is not one of my favorite Assassin's Creed games at all. I think I would rather honestly play Assassin's Creed 2 than to play through Unity like this in terms of levels of performance. But I can understand if you just really want to play the Assassin's Creed games, you're going through them, and this is the level of performance you're getting on here, you can get away with playing like this. Just don't have very high expectations or anything like that. But if you're a budget gamer, chances are you're kind of used to playing a lot of games like this. And of course, we are getting some very good utilization of those 16 gigabytes of RAM, because if we had just the 8 gigabytes, this would be an absolute disaster running right now. But the 16 gigabytes is being used the best that it can right now, because it leaves more than enough for other things to run in the background without eating up everything, because we have seen some games where it will eat up 13, 14, sometimes even 15 gigabytes of RAM, which is insane considering that Windows has to use some of that RAM as well. So it's nice to see that this at least is not just eating up every single piece of RAM that it can get its hands on. And let me show you some of the combat so that you can actually see how it actually affects the performance. And really overall, in terms of how the game is actually performing, you're not going to run into any issues where you're going to have trouble timing the parries or anything like that, because games that really have major performance issues like stutters and things like that can actually make things like parrying very difficult to do. In this situation, you're going to be able to get away with doing it. I'm just terrible, so I will miss it sometimes, but it's not because the game is bringing in performance issues that are going to make it very common to miss those things. But the game itself is fully playable, so if this is again something you really want to play, you can get away with doing it. I don't know if I'd personally continue to do that. By the way, I enjoy the fact that in this game you could just have the enemies just writhing there on the floor in pain, and you could just rob them as they're not even done bleeding out to death yet. This is some savage stuff, but it cracks me up. I did enjoy playing the game like this. You could definitely have some fun playing like this. It's just one of those things where I'm not the biggest Assassin's Creed Unity fan, because it's still very buggy. A lot of the bugs that it had when it first launched are still present. There's still a little bit of a jankiness to it. It's not great. It's definitely not great. But if it's one of those games that you really want to play, you can actually get away with doing it on here. I mean, those 1% lows of 30 are really just going to make it so that you're not really going to have too bad of an experience. If things were dropping down into the lower 20s, I'd start to tell you maybe look into not playing it on here like this. But 1% lows of 32 are perfectly acceptable when your average is in the 40 range. Now, whether or not that's enough for you really just depends on what your tolerance is to fluctuations of FPS. Personally, I could get used to playing like this. I understand that there's a lot of people out there, especially people that are more prone to motion sickness, that might struggle with this lower FPS. So it's really just one of those things where it depends on you personally. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.